I'm just a typical American boy from a typical American town. I believe in God and Senator Dodd and in keeping old Castro down.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Lions Led by Donkeys podcast.
That was weak.
And as always, someone burps into the mic to ruin my intro. This time it's Rich, because I have Nick and Rich.
Sorry, that was such a weak one, guys.
Yeah, I expect better professional burping into the mic. Nick and Rich sounds like a shitty country band, by the way.
That's because Big and Rich.
Yeah, that's just because it rhymes with Big and Rich and it is a shitty country band.
Yeah. You guys singing farm emo together.
Country is awful.
That's how we really are gonna. Our podcast is gonna break into the mainstream. Is you guys starting a shitty country band, or possibly we fold this into a kind of evangelical church.
Cult or nothing. I'm not doing that fucking evangelical shit.
Cult and
We would need
evangelical
property.
church is.
I mean, same thing, but I want to be known as a cult.
Yeah, when all of our adherents dress up in matching uniforms and drink
What kind of
themselves,
uniforms?
I don't know.
Would we go with the tracksuit?
Tracksuit's been taken by Heaven's Gate.
Yeah, you're right.
But they're so comfortable.
I know, and it fits our
It
brand.
totally does. It
Yeah.
does fit our brand.
We're gonna take the
Soviet general uniforms for everybody.
No, thank you.
Everybody's a general. We
I
can
officially resign my position
can-
in this cult.
we can take the tracksuits back because I think theirs were Nike. Ours can be Adidas because that's on brand. And everybody dies in a squat.
I like it.
Yes.
Everybody squats in a circle.
Drinking poison kava.
Yeah. Yep. Or sunflower seeds.
We're
Also
not
an
doing
option.
that bullshit fucking Flavor Aid either.
No. I mean, if the Patreon is high enough, we can afford actual Kool-Aid, but it's not looking good. So how have you guys been? It's been a while since we've all been on the show, same time. I know you've since you're both stationed on JBLM here in Washington State, you've had to struggle with the visit of the Sergeant Major of the Army. I won't ask either one of you to speak on that because it'll get you in trouble.
All I'm going to say, Joe, is it's been a long week.
It's been a long week.
Had a great week.
Spoken like a man who purposely got out of work. He's shaking his head yes. Now, I brought both of you here today because I feel like as a group, we're all pretty... we have a pretty realistic take on all of our services. Like, I don't feel shamed when I say I would dodge the Vietnam draft. I think I've said it before.
I think we both have.
Yeah. Rich,
have you?
since you can actually be drafted now, would you have retroactively dodged the Vietnam draft?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I don't look... The only people that I look down on dodging the draft is people that did it by just using money because it's not creative. Like, anybody could bribe a doctor to be like, you have anal cysts. I think that's what Rush Limbaugh did. Or maybe it was Bill O'Reilly. I don't know. They both look like sentient mashed potatoes. It's hard to tell them apart. But like a lot of rich people just kind of bought their way out.
Yeah.
Or rode their way through college. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. So as a group, we have come to an agreement. I think a lot of our listeners would also agree. Like, yes, we would dodge that draft.
If a certain somebody had fled to Canada and risked his life to dodge the draft, I would respect it more. I'm just saying.
I mean, running to Canada isn't risking your life. It's not like he's a Mexican fleeing across the Texas border and nobody's gonna fucking shoot him. You know,
I mean,
fleeing
but,
to Canada is as easy as driving across the bridge, and they're like, "Welcome to Canada."
like you said though, like it's just so uncreative to just like pay somebody to say you have, I don't know, maybe bone spurs.
That's pretty common. We'll talk about that as well. I actually went into depth all the ways the people decided to get out of this when they had money, or if they're just really dedicated. So, like, what if you were my friend, like as a favor? Because, like, would you go to Afghanistan for me?
No.
Yeah, wouldn't either.
Do I get your paycheck in Afghanistan?
Temporarily. Because, I mean, this is the day that, like, there was no direct deposit. You're going to a pay officer. So there's no way that I could take your money. But you're going to deploy under the name Joseph Kasabian. You will get no benefits. The only thing
I
that
want to be known as Armenian.
that's the real problem here.
Yeah.
I feel like I would stand out immediately as not Joseph Kasabian, but I might do it.
I mean, the Army's dumb, as we'll find out, as we all already know. We've been doing the show for almost...
Easy.
You could totally pass as me.
Oh.
Now, all you have to do is ride E4 until they threaten to kick you out because you haven't made E5 yet,
I was there.
and then get demoted. Because that's pretty much my career in a nutshell. On the bright side, you can pivot into writing really dumb books, and they'll do okay. Now, it's hard to tell, like, would you do this for, like, a childhood friend? Like, someone that you've known for decades?
Not at all.
It's hard for me to, like, equate that, because I don't have any childhood friends. I've moved away from home as soon as I could, and I kind of hated everybody in my hometown. I don't have anybody that I keep in contact with that I knew since, like, elementary school. I think the only one that does is Rich.
Yes, I think I would.
You look like you had a pen pal.
She did.
I did have a pen pal. He lives in New Zealand, and I still talk to him to this day.
Do you ever just like, hey, what's it like to have healthcare?
Yeah, we talked about it. Yeah, he seems very happy. Goes on vacations a lot. Like, a lot. Like, I don't even know what the dude fucking does to be able to afford all the fucking international travel he does. But
He breeds kiwi birds. It's the only job option in New Zealand. It's crippling the economy.
But yeah, I've known him since I was 13.
Also, extra in Lord of the Rings.
But I do have a very old childhood friend that I've known since I was 3 years old. And also, I would do it for my sister, too.
I mean, I think I would definitely want to do it to my brother. I'd wave goodbye to him as that motherfucker gets sent to Vietnam.
Yeah.
I think that, like, the closest thing that I have to a childhood friend in Washington State is Nick. Obviously, we bonded over the art of podcasting. We watch each other's dogs. I mean, that's a level of friendship.
You can't count him as a childhood friend. You met him when you were like 26.
I've aged a lot in several years.
I mean,
like,
he was a child.
I think
All of like
I mean,
20.
technically.
I think
I met him at 19.
most
19.
people's answer to that question would be no. Most people are not, even their childhood friends, are not going to be like, yes, I will go risk my life for my childhood friend. Which brings us to what has to be one of the weirdest stories of the Vietnam War. And that is a guy named Paul Mahar. Mahar. It could be Mahar. I'm going with Mahar.
I like Mahar.
So Paul Mahar and his close friend Frank Close, or Klaus, I think it's Close,
Good thing they're close.
were born and raised on the same street, Peck Avenue, a road in a decent part of town in North Newark, New Jersey. As decent as New Jersey can get.
Newark?
Yeah. I mean, this is the fucking 50s, whatever.
Yeah,
I mean,
all right.
it's still Jersey, though.
Yeah.
The two men were inseparable by all accounts and did absolutely everything together. Though apparently they were both little shitheads, as most teenage boys are. Because one day they were both 13. Close picked a fight with a larger boy, but couldn't back up his shit talking. That was when Mahar stepped up and beat the fucker's ass for him. Now, Close paid him back by buying him a sandwich, which is the price of a good violence.
Yeah. What kind of sandwich?
It doesn't say. It's New Jersey, so I'm assuming it's sewage.
Oh.
Just between two flaps of human skin.
Gross.
I don't understand New Jersey. I don't know. I know you go south until you smell it from New York.
For any New
That's how
Jersey
we
listeners
navigate.
out there.
Now, that's not...
With our noses.
I'm sorry for Joe's racism.
New Jersey's not a race? And if it is, yeah. Okay, fine.
What do you call it when you're ist against a whole state?
When it's against New Jersey, it's called rational. I have nothing against the landmass of New Jersey. It's the people that are... No,
I think I saw blueprints for a camp that you were talking about for New Jersey people.
It's an internment camp, first of all.
Sorry.
Thankfully, living up in the Pacific Northwest, we have tons of vacant ones.
It's true.
Yeah. Now, I don't mean anything that I say about New Jersey. I have a friend from New Jersey.
I honestly
have
hope-
a New Jerseyan friend.
I know a guy from New
possibly-
Jersey.
Yeah.
I've met somebody from there.
I hope people know that we joke on this show.
Yeah,
That's my thing that I...
We have fun.
this is a family show. All right. I normally shit on Ohio. I gotta spread it out a bit.
I mean, it's genetically bred into you as a Michigander to shit on Ohio.
It's
though.
true. That's where the joke is. You go south until you smelling it. You smell it.
I never heard that, to be honest with you.
It's because you're not from Michigan.
It's because you're from California. If you go south, you're just in the ocean.
In Mexico.
I'm in Mexico.
I mean, that's like southeast.
You have ranch in your veins.
Fair enough. It's fair. You say what you want about Michiganders, but at least we invaded Ohio.
It's true.
So there. Now, Now, the problem is after Mahar beat up that guy for close, he just like kind of wouldn't let it go. Close was strutting around acting like a badass, even though his friend had handled his lightweight for him. We all know a Frank. Or like it's the guy who's like, if there's a bar fight and everybody jumps in, he's the one on the top of the pile, not doing anything. But then afterwards, like, yeah, we beat that guy's ass. Oh, did we? Did we, Frank? Eventually, Mahar got sick of him, and the two got in a fight. We're not entirely sure what happened, and it's also kind of weird that Mahar was the stronger of the two, because he's the one that ended up breaking his arm and requiring plates to put his arm back together. Thankfully, that's never happened to anybody that we know.
I don't have plates.
You have screws.
Screws and wires.
See, he had plates and screws. I feel like wires might be an evolution of this technology.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like maybe
I feel
they
like
just
maybe-
don't use plates as much anymore.
I know this is like the 50s, I think, so they may have just used dinner plates. I'm not entirely sure. Now, the next couple of years, the two friends parted ways, mostly because their families took jobs in other places, and they had to bring their families with them. Though they managed to keep in contact, but since this is the late 50s and early 60s, I assume this means that they use messenger pigeons or some shit. I've heard of this thing called writing letters. I'm skeptical of what that means. I believe it is some kind of email with extra steps.
Did you not write letters like when you were in basic training and stuff?
Yes, Rich, that is called a joke.
Really?
I didn't write any letters.
Are you allowed to have your cell phone?
No.
You shouldn't write any letters to anybody?
No. Who was I going to write? My family?
I
Yeah.
mean, maybe.
Exactly. Those.
What were they
people.
going to say?
You had to have written letters to someone that you went to high school with, so when you went back to California, someone would have sex with you. That's how being in the military works.
I wrote no letters because I wanted to sleep.
I wrote letters to my mother, you heathen.
Look, I'm not here to judge how you Texans get it on down there. All right. Now, Mahar in school never really got along too well. He was failing pretty fast, and he was probably going to get kicked out soon. According to an article in People called The Unknown Soldier, this is because Mahar kept getting into fistfights and drinking rather than studying, which,
Nice.
like, I can respect
Yeah.
that. Yeah. I mean, that's going to become a trend, but, like, I can respect that. Now, seeing how he had no future in school, he dropped out and decided to look for work. Unfortunately for Mahar, he kind of sucked at that too and didn't have any skills. He grew up in the suburbs. His dad wasn't like a craftsman of any kind to teach him a skill. I know all about that. And because he didn't graduate, he doesn't even have a degree. So he did what we all sitting in this room did. He said, I guess I got to enlist. Now, at the time, the enlistments standards were quite a bit lower. As we all know vividly from our Project 100,000 episode. Now, it wasn't quite Project 100,000 yet, but you didn't need a high school diploma by any means.
Right.
At this point, you needed to pass a rudimentary exam, kind of, and you had to be literate. Like, there were not high standards at the time.
Back then, a lot of people just didn't get diplomas, right? Like a lot of people like just pulled out of school to like work their farms and stuff, didn't they?
Not in suburban New Jersey.
I
no.
mean, but like just in general, the Army standards are across the country.
Well, I mean, I don't know so much about that. I know that's super common in rural areas, but I mean, the Americans have graduated from high school at a higher rate than, anywhere else for the most part. It's started dropping recently, but graduation rates have always been pretty high. 90 percentile type shit. Now, the Army standards were a little bit lower then, but he figured, fuck it, they'll take me. It turns out not. Even though it turns out it's 1966 and hundreds of thousands of Americans have already deployed to Vietnam, and the draft was kicking in. 6,000 Americans had already died in Vietnam, with another 30,000 wounded. And this is pretty early on in the war. And it should be noted, like, while it is early, that is still higher than like any casualty numbers that we would be familiar with through decades of war. So like this should have been like holy shit numbers. I don't know. I wasn't alive in the 60s. But it turns out that Mahar, even in this circumstance, was not fit to be a soldier in the U.S. Army. The problem, as some of you may have picked up on, was that pin and plate in his arm. Now, if you break that shit while you're in the military, they're fine and dandy with that. They'll slap you back together, but they're not going to enlist you when you already have problems. It's like buying a used car. Like it's got to pass a certain level of things, you know? And it also, I mean, to his luck, it also made it exempt from the draft. So like, you know, sweet with the
pretty
sour.
dope.
Yeah, I would be like, you know what? I'll take this as a victory. Now, unfortunately, Mahar's pretty pissed because that was his fallback plan. He's like, you know what? I fuck up, I can't get a job, and I'm drifting around doing whatever. I can always enlist. But that was taken away from him. Actually, I know a few people that happened to. And it was because one of them actually failed the ASVAB. Failed it. Like,
fail it?
Fail it. Like, come back and try again.
Oh, okay.
Not like there's always, I don't know, laundry technician or whatever, like, that didn't even, nope.
Well, you said in the Project 100 episode that there's, like, tiers, and then there's, like, the one where you can be wavered in, and the one where it's, like, actually, no, sorry.
Yeah, and, you know, for a comparison, in case anybody didn't listen to that episode, I'm not going to go into the tiers, but we did not nearly dive down to the level during like the peak of the surges for waivers, and it still made the news because the waivers that we were granting, some of them were medical, but most of them were cosmetic. Like you could have tattoos on your neck and hands, and they started waiving high school graduates. You could have a GED. We did not waive the developmentally disabled. We were 2 whole tiers away from that, and people are still like, my God, the army is being diluted. It was, just in a different way. Now, Mahar had to bounce around and find jobs, which required him to travel quite a bit. I'm assuming he tried to get temp gigs writing and maybe create a podcast like some of us.
That podcast would be really weird.
Yeah.
I don't even know how that would work.
He's just going to talk about getting drunk and fighting.
In the alleyway to
Yeah.
nobody.
This is actually how you could get elected governor here. Now, while Mahar was trying to get busy and nail down work, his friend Close had been drafted. He had been drafted in 1966, immediately after his wedding, which is either really good luck or really shitty luck, depending on how you feel about the commitment of marriage.
Can they give him like a honeymoon year? Jesus.
Now, this is because this actually used to be disqualifying. He ended up getting married when they waived that. Now, a way around that is if they had a kid. If you were married with a kid, they would move on. You'd get deferment. And there was a married deferment, like a marriage deferment, and a lot of people were getting married in groups just to dodge the draft. And then they were just like, I think it was like 1964 or 5. Like, yeah, that's gone now. Like, shit, I have to go to college. Like, you're saying I have to fuck this person so we can have a kid? I'm going to Vietnam. Klaus attended and graduated basic training at Fort Dix and went to the infantry school at Fort Polk. So he's cursed twice. Or 3 times now since he got fucking drafted.
Yeah.
Hat trick. And at the end of September of that same year, he showed right back up to his old friend Paul Mahar's front door in his dress uniform. Close was, according to Mahar, paralyzed with fear, breaking down with tears, and just saying over and over again, I can't possibly go to Vietnam. I can't go to Vietnam.
I feel like I know where you're going with this.
He had just received orders. Now, Close told him, I just got orders to Vietnam. But he had actually gotten orders to Vietnam several weeks before. And he said that there was just no way he could leave his wife and go. Now, Mahar was between jobs and living in a rundown boarding house at the time. And now remember, his friend had a job that he wanted and could not get. And now he's like, I need help getting out of it. I would probably not be very happy at the time. Now, it's one of those moments in your life where you're like, you look around at the things around you and you're like, what did I do to end up here? Like, I would totally take this job, but instead I'm unemployed and living in what was optimistically called a flop house. So it's like, not good.
Maybe they could turn that O into an I and flip it.
It's a flip house.
Yeah.
I think drunks call that a moment of clarity. Now, the thing is, you remember how I said he had gotten orders several weeks before? It's because he was AWOL already.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he decided to tell Mahar that after they had been talking for several hours. Yeah, his leave had to run out a couple days before, and he just went to his buddy's house. Now, remember, he's married. So he's like, and he told his wife at the time. Now, his wife is in on this for the most part. telling him that he should probably go AWOL. And it was her idea to just go to Canada. He didn't want to do that. Now, the problem was, this is pretty much the worst way to get out of going to Vietnam. He had already been drafted, and they tended to care about getting him back. It's a crime to desert. I mean, it is a crime to dodge a draft, too, if you're dumb and just burn your draft card. Like, there's ways around it. And I'm not saying people who resisted the draft by burning their draft card is dumb. They just went about the worst way possible and faced, prison sentences for it. There's so many different ways to get around it without going to prison. Going to prison to dodge the draft is just purely a political stance, which I have respect for, but also just go to Canada. Now, dodging the draft from the beginning was the smart way to go. There was an obvious route to Canada that upwards, and this is actually like the lower limit that 30,000 American men took. Some people say it's as high as 100,000.
Jesus.
Yeah, which...
Wow.
Like the Oregon Trail.
Yeah. Yeah. This ended up being something of a wash because around the same number of Canadians moved south so they could fight in Vietnam.
Really?
Yep. Like 150 of them died. One of them got the Medal of Honor.
But why?
War tourism. It's the same reason why when World War I started and the U.S. kept its ass out of it, tens of thousands of Americans went north and fought for Canada. Just kind of what bored white people do.
Because war is fun? No, that's not right. War is hell. That's the saying.
War is considered a badge of fucking manly honor and masculism and adventurism and all that other bullshit. And remember this. Remember, this is the war that destroys all those ideas. Like, this is this generation's World War I. Like, they're marching off to fight communists, and while everybody's kind of not sure where Vietnam is on a map, they know they're going to go do their duty just like their dad did and everything. And, like, it's the right thing to do. Just like in World War I, everybody thought war was romantic and gentlemanly. And then they choked on their own lung fluid, and that died pretty quickly. Just like in this part of the war, draft dodging isn't that high, or draft resisting, or desertion, whatever you want to call it. Isn't that high. But by the end of the war, just so fucking many people were deserting and evading and resisting in various different ways. So, like, it hasn't, even though upwards of 6,000 people are dead already, that doesn't really register with people quite yet. They haven't been, their brain hasn't been broken yet. Not to mention, after we've been at war with Vietnam, or in Vietnam, for a couple of years, at that point, that's when tens of thousands of people are coming home wounded. Be like, dude, this shit sucks. Do not go.
So I guess maybe, like, if you think you're going for the right reasons or valiant reasons and you think you're going to win, maybe then it's glamorous.
Why wouldn't we win? We're fighting a whole bunch of rice farmers there wearing flip-flops.
But then once they realize that the war is completely fucking off kilter and everything you thought about was wrong, it's like, no, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, people in black pajamas and flip-flops now have a winning record against the United States military. So true. I mean, they're like 2-0 right now. Well, 3-0 if you count Iraq.
Our seriously uncomfortable uniforms.
For a country like the United States, the Western world in general, who likes to go to war about things over like political ideology in Vietnam or South Korea or virtually any other war that we fought, you think that we'd be good at it, but we have a worse record than the Detroit Lions. Like, we should stop. It's like the guy at the bar who's just burns out every single time, and women are giving him fake numbers. The next one's the one. We're going to turn this motherfucker around. This dry spell's going to end.
Oh, I got it.
Hasn't happened yet.
I got it.
Hey.
No, America is the drunk guy at the bar that gets in fights so that they can feel something.
No, the drunk guy at the bar who's getting in fights because they could feel something was already an American at war. Now, there's a lot of problems that came with going to Canada. Distance, for one. If you live in Texas, it's going to be a bitch to get up to Canada. Also, maybe you disliked hockey. I don't know. Now, the people fell into largely two groups. That was the evaders, people who had not yet been brought to a draft board yet, and the deserters, people who have been drafted and get the fuck out as soon as they have the chance. Most evaders were middle-class college students who had run out of money or time on college deferments, and they could not continue to dodge the draft by staying in school. Most of the deserters were lower class, uneducated, and were drafted straight out of high school. Weird how that works. Now, originally, the Canadians hadn't been too cool with this. It didn't look good. to be an ally, but also like actively hurt the American war effort by accepting tens and tens of thousands of draft dodgers. So at first they forced you to bring a copy of your discharge paperwork showing that you had, maybe you were draft ineligible or you had already served and you weren't dodging anything. Like, no, look, I'm good. I'm just going to Canada. I don't know. So those started getting forged because it's the 60s. They're not just going to pull up a computer and double check this shit. But they came around in 1968. Also, it kind of helped that desertion was not a crime in Canada. So, and it did not cover that particular crime under the UCMJ was not like a federal statute or anything. So it didn't, like, Canada wouldn't extradite you for it. It was a law that effectively did not exist in Canada. So they're like, yeah, you're good. Come on through. Also, it really helped that the first people going over there were people running away from college, and they were well educated and vastly white and middle class. Only helped Canada. So they're like, sure, we'll take this brain drain, whatever, man. Unfortunately, that was 2 years too late for our buddy Close. So let's take some of the ways that he could have used to get out of the draft. There was the caffeine trick. This is my personal favorite. It requires some dedication, though. Not as much dedication, but it's one that I could pull off because it only cost a couple bucks. Now, this one is pretty cut and dry. You ate or drank as much caffeine as you possibly could and stayed awake for as long as you could before you went to the draft board to get your physical. So it was almost assured at that point, if you had stayed awake for 48 hours or so, that your medical would be completely fucked. You'd have high blood pressure. You'd probably not pass your psych evaluation. Solid choice.
Can you imagine how much better that would be now when we have like bangs and pre-workout and shit?
Yeah, I would just like boof a bang and then just walk up in there like 2 days later.
Or the 32-ounce Monster?
I drank 2 of those one day on a dare. I puked.
Yeah, I bet you wouldn't have fucking gotten into the Vietnam draft.
I don't know. I don't like my ads.
I wonder what they did like to stay up. There's no games to play.
Can't play games on your phone or Call of Duty or
Yeah.
something.
Get ripped on caffeine pills and read a book. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that'll put me to sleep.
There was also some stories where people did it a lot easier and they just took acid before they went in there.
Nice.
Which, like, man, I don't know, but I'm at this table with a whole bunch of dragons and shit. Like,
These should sound like
Dr.
so
Banana.
much fun.
and there was another one that I might be able to pull off. Contact lenses. Now, I'm wearing contact lenses right now. They are soft and, I mean, you are supposed to take them out every day and replace them every couple months, but they're relatively comfortable unless you fuck up and are wearing an old pair like I am right now. Back then, they're made out of hard plastic, and they were pretty
Solid.
You only could leave them in for a couple hours, and then they started becoming pretty painful. So someone devised a plan that, what if I just left them in for like 2 days?
They like fused to his eyes or something.
No. That really doesn't happen even today unless you leave them in for an obscene amount of time, like weeks and weeks or months and months. So when he took them out and went in, he was pretty much blind and failed the eye exam. Draft ineligible.
As somebody who couldn't wear contact lenses because I am terrified of touching my eyes, that sounds fucking horrifying.
Now, I've left my contacts in for a day or two at a time. It's not comfortable, but I could see. This must have sucked. This must have really sucked. And then,
What's the feeling?
like sand in your eyes.
That's not. Oh no.
It's not good.
Okay with
No.
that.
Or maybe like when you got a hair in your eye, but just all,
that's
but
annoying.
just all over.
Oh, that sucks.
Now, there's another one where someone just decided to chug straight corn syrup, which would cause his blood pressure or his blood sugar to spike. So when they took his blood sugar, he'd be diabetic.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
That one's pretty easy. No, that's cut and dry because I feel like I could chug corn syrup and my blood sugar would not be that high. Now, this is like pure undiluted corn syrup.
I feel like you could like make that taste better or like more enjoyable.
You're drinking like industrial fucking food supplies.
Just make
I
it
don't know.
into brownies and eat the whole thing of brownies.
I mean, you could also eat your shit. That'd probably get you out of Vietnam too.
Ew. Oh, brownies sound so much better than that, Joe.
put some acid in those brownies and we'll talk.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people just showed up high. And that didn't really work that great because if you're obviously stoned, they'd be like, whatever, come back in a week. Like, this isn't going to work.
We'll get stoned for the whole war.
Yeah. Eventually you'll run out of money and have to come to this motherfucker sober.
Now I need a list to buy more.
Yeah. Now we need the government paycheck so we can buy more weed.
Another way that rich people have the advantage.
Yep. Going further down that route, the fake insanity route, we're gonna talk about what I call the Ted Nugent method. According to shitty musician, racist, and most likely a pedophile Ted Nugent, he smoked a bunch of meth and shit his pants days beforehand, and then did not wash himself.
Ugh.
He
Nice.
he described it as being really caked on there.
What a patriot.
Ugh.
Yeah, then he now, of course,
Yeah.
makes his living being a fucking warmongering piece of shit and racist. Now, since then, he told this story multiple times over the years. I think it started in a High Times article, which is pretty on brand for him at the time. And he's revised it. He also had a backup plan to make his physical go terribly if for some reason they could see through the fact that he just shit on himself. Is that he lived on nothing but Vienna sausages and Pepsi for like 2 weeks, which would fuck up your blood pressure because Vienna sausages are like 99% salt.
And they're disgusting.
Yeah, they are disgusting.
My brother used to drink the Vienna sausage juice when he was younger.
I think it's just salt water.
He liked it.
I fed Vienna sausages to the puppies in Afghanistan.
I also dislike Afghanistan puppies. I'm kidding. I love them, and that was animal abuse. Now, there's a good bet that this is Ted Nugent we're talking about in the 60s, so that may have just been how he lived.
For sure.
But he has attempted to say, no, I was just kidding. But his draft deferment, which are public, like you can FOIA this shit, is a mental deferment. So, like, he did something to fuck them up. And then there's Chevy Chase, the well-known comedian, and he's a pretty well-known dickhead these days.
Yeah.
He got it by just telling him he was gay, which was what you could do at the time.
Right.
Now, so many people started doing this that they just stopped believing people.
I need to see you fucking.
Yeah, like there was numerous tales of like people going to the draft were like, "Yep, I'm gay," and someone's like, "Well, suck my dick." He's like, "Nope." I mean,
Until they found the one guy that would.
I would. I'd suck a dick to get out of Vietnam. I'm sorry, but
Hold on.
This is the $1 million question. Like, would you suck a dick for $1 million? Every soldier's like, yeah, absolutely. It's $1 million,
It
man.
wouldn't even have to be $1 million.
Yeah, like 50 grand.
Yeah. Oh, fuck yeah.
I'm sure you've all had worse things in your mouth.
Yeah,
Would you
definitely.
have to let him finish?
I've had humid shit in my mouth, so yeah.
Would you have to
I've
let him?
got dysentery. That's how you get dysentery.
Would you let him finish? Like, do you have to finish the dude off, or like
That's all contract
Yeah.
negotiations. We'll have to talk about
To
later.
completion.
to completion?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude.
Otherwise, you're just not gay.
2 minutes or less.
They start a timer.
Yeah.
If you're not good at it, then you're faking.
Yeah.
God damn it.
The pressure's on.
Now, before we laugh too hard at this, and we already have, this is the military in the 1960s. Only a couple years ago was being gay in the military okay. So, way to go, U.S. military. Now, you could apply for a conscientious objector status. At the time, your CO status had to be directly linked to a religious institution or a traditional belief. That is pretty restricting because you had to like bring character witnesses to prove like, no, I'm really religious, and like priests generally won't lie for you, which is a huge downer because they will rape you, but they won't lie to the government
Right.
for you.
They'll tell me God's inside me.
That is unless if you're a Mormon. The Mormon church got into deep shit because it was declared just about everybody in it a missionary, getting them out of the draft, which solid fucking choice, Mormons.
But aren't they all?
You don't have to, from my understanding. Like it's encouraged that you volunteer for a time as a missionary. Like there's people that come to your house and talk to you about.
Yeah.
They want to talk to you about.
Mow your lawn.
And then
Yeah.
like ask you if you want them to like take out your trash and stuff. No, thank you, dude. Just
Yeah, it's weird. Don't do that. And then it ended up getting in shit because the Department of Defense like, you guys do not have this many missionaries, and they're like, fine, and they capped it. It was a yearly cap on how many missionaries. they
Nobody
had.
wants to be Mormon.
Yeah, like weird. Since we capped it, nobody wants to be Mormon anymore.
Yeah.
One famous person who used this to get out of the draft was Mitt Romney, failed presidential candidate. It also probably didn't help that his dad was the governor of Michigan at the time, so he had two things going for him. Another person who used the CO route to get out of the draft was Senator Bernie Sanders. Now, he did not get his CO status because he openly admit when questioned, nope, I'm not religious, which, like, respect for not lying. Like he
What the fuck?
Did you forget what you came here to do, bro?
like he filed his conscientious objectors ask, like hoping he'd slip through the cracks, and like he got brought in and asked, like, so what church? He's like, oh yeah, I'm not religious.
He cracked
Can't
under
tell a lie.
cracked under the pressure.
So his status got rejected, but he was smart enough to immediately appeal it and continue to appeal it, and then launch an investigation on the appeal long enough where he was over the age of 26 and could no longer be drafted. Now, that's not because he was rich. He was dirt fucking poor and literally living in a wooden shack at the time. He just managed to finagle the system.
Just fucking resourceful. I like it.
Yeah, he lived in a wooden shack without a floor. Still smart enough to outsmart the draft board.
Nice.
So like solid choice if you're not Mormon.
And there's
Or-
no need to vacuum or broom. Like,
Yeah, you could just
sweep.
be vacuuming for all eternity.
No need
Yeah.
to vacuum or broom.
Yeah. No need to sweep.
Spoken like a man who's broomed a few floors in his day.
Not a lot.
Now, having connections or money, as you can imagine, was your best bet. Enlisting in the National Guard was a good way to get out of Vietnam service because the guards ranks were always swelled to bursting for this exact reason. Now, the National Guard did deploy to Vietnam, but in much, much fewer numbers, like 15 or 20,000 total. So, like, you had a good fucking chance. That was unless you had daddy's money to help you out and secure a spot. Like,
Whose money?
daddy's money. Daddy! That's how George W. Bush got a Vietnam draft. He got into the Texas Air National Guard, then never bothered to show up. Now he did I think he learned how to fly badly, but like records show he kind of like only showed up half the time, which I could respect that
awesome.
for like being a rich piece of shit war criminal. You gotta give it to him. I don't know. Like the one cool thing that George Bush did other than do a whole bunch of coke. Or you could use a money to bribe your local doctor in giving you a bullshit medical diagnosis, which would preclude you from the draft, like our current president, Donald J. Trump, almost certainly did, with his now famous bone spurs, because he ran out of educational deferments for 5 deferments total. There's a pretty small club of people that went like 5-fold deferments. The other one is Dick Cheney.
That dude's old as shit.
Yeah, Dick Cheney has existed before the United States, and he will exist after the United States.
Oh, yeah.
He is Cthulhu, but white.
On his 8th heart.
Yeah. At this point, he's like Henry Kissinger. As more people in the Middle East die, his life just gets extended. So another person who almost certainly lied about their medical condition is former Vice President Joe Biden, who was struck down with a mysterious case of asthma, despite being a high school star athlete at the same time. Nor has he ever spoken about his cursed asthma ever since. Weird.
Damn that asthma.
Yeah.
We'll get you.
So unfortunately, Klaus didn't have any of those things, and his ass got drafted like a total fucking idiot.
What a moron.
Fucking loser. Now, Mahar and Klaus had a bit of a falling out over the years. So I bring that up because a lot of what we know about Klaus comes from Mahar. Klaus has not said shit about this entire thing on record. So you can kind of assume that Mahar is a bit of an unreliable narrator in his own life story. And he has a short biography called Scattered Shots, which I cannot find a copy of, only excerpts. So in that book, he makes Klaus seem like a really big, needy baby, like always needing somebody else to bail him out of a situation that he found himself in, which seems on brand so far. So much so that, like, he said, quote, "It was Frank's way. It was the nature of our friendship," which doesn't sound like a good dynamic. Like, Frank was the guy who went to a party without bringing anything and then drank everybody else's beer.
Nice.
The guy that shows up to the smoke pit and always bumps.
Yeah. Have you guys got a cigarette? Man, god damn it. The two sat down to try to figure out a way out of this, and to get Klaus out of the war. And that's when they eventually worked out a plan. A kind of really, really dumb plan that you expect a couple 18-year-olds to figure out.
He didn't want to take any hunk spunk, so.
Like, have you tried doing meth and shitting yourself? Have you tried being rich? Fuck, that didn't work either. Mahar would replace Klaus in uniform. Nobody in the unit Klaus was going to had any idea what he looked like, so that would hardly be a problem. And they can like Twitter stalk him or whatever. They could forge Klaus's records because somehow back then his 201 file, which was the personnel file back then, I don't know what it's called now, the information like his height, his weight, his eye color, all that stuff was filled in with pencil.
That's
They
awesome.
could just change
Holy
it.
shit,
Holy
that's
shit.
awesome.
And since his uniforms wouldn't have fit, Mahar would just say he lost them or got them stolen and get issued new ones. Here's the important part. The plan was not for Mahar to go anywhere in the army. Like, he wasn't just going to replace him. It's like, well, I want your job. I'll take your job. He was just going to go to Fort Dix, impersonate his friend for a few days, and then go to sick call. Once at sick call, he's going to be like, look, they missed the fucking plate in my arm. I can't go to Vietnam. Because
solid plan.
it is exactly the dumb plan that you expect an 18-year-old to come up
Nice.
with. Now, this would end up with Close getting a medical discharge and avoiding Vietnam.
And having a honeymoon.
And yeah, maybe going on a honeymoon. I'm assuming he 101 says he's been AWOL now, but maybe not. He's a bit stressed out. And then Mahar would go home. He assumed the whole plan would take like a week or two. In Mahar's words, quote, Vietnam was not a possibility. Instead, what happened was Mahar showed up to Fort Dix and was immediately arrested by the MPs because he was fucking AWOL.
Right?
He was thrown into, instead of being thrown into jail, he was thrown into a disciplinary barracks with other soldiers who had been shitheads. They'd been stealing things, doing drugs, going AWOL, whatever. Here's one of the biggest problems with Mahar and Close's plan. They assumed the military would act rationally. Beginner's mistake.
Got him.
Yeah. And that they would show up, prove that he could no longer be a soldier, that being Mahar with his plated up arm, and the army just be like, oh,
Cool.
okay, then you're not a soldier anymore. Instead, the army acted exactly as we all know it would after years of service and almost 2 years of doing this show. Now, as we talked before about, like during our Project 100,000 episode, the army was kind of having a hard time finding enough bodies to go get killed in Vietnam. So once somebody passed through the draft and went through training and graduated, like Mahar hypothetically would have, and if he was anybody else in those barracks, the chances of you actually getting discharged without going to Vietnam, without like blowing your fucking toe off or something, was pretty goddamn slim.
Right.
And I actually know a guy who did something like that. My old stepdad, who proudly talked about it. He actually got drafted, and he got picked to be a helicopter door gunner, which is a really fucking bad job to have. And all of his instructors. Now, at first, he said when he started like getting drafted, he said he kind of wanted to go to Vietnam, and then he went to the gunner school, and all of his instructors had been wounded, and they talked about all their friends who had died. So he's like, "Well, fuck, I want to go to Vietnam." So he crushed his foot with a slab of concrete, which permanently crippled him. But you know what? He got his discharge and didn't go to Vietnam. Yeah, this pin in the arm shit was not going to work. And the other problem was he never got an x-ray. He never even got a chance to speak to a medic. Instead of coming up with this plan before he went AWOL and maybe having some wiggle room, like going on leave and then switching, then like going back on schedule and then just being another soldier that someone might listen to and like, yeah, sure, go to the doctor. He had broke the law. They weren't listening to him. He'd already proven that he'd fucking run off if they let him go anywhere. So they had him locked in the barracks.
Oh, man.
Also, since the army thought he already was a fuck up, which hypothetically he was because Mahar is now close, he went AWOL. He's a criminal. He would have been demoted if he had any rank. Not only did they not give him a chance to talk to a doctor, they accelerated his deployment to Vietnam. With only 5 days after showing up at Fort Dix, Mahar was standing on the tarmac of McGuire Air Force
Fucking
Base,
sucks.
given a pack of cigarettes by a sergeant and shoved up the ramp to a cargo plane.
You got a pack of cigarettes?
Yep.
Nice.
He probably could smoke on the plane at the time, too. Paul Mahar was sent to Vietnam without a single fucking day of training.
My arm. But there's plates in it. Have fun, Vietnam. Yeah, dude.
Good luck, idiot! Now, somehow, to make all of this work, nobody had any idea where he was other than close. Mahar, thinking this plan would take only a couple days, never told his family where he was going. Worse still, he never bothered to call Close because he thought this little arm excuse would be foolproof. When he learned only like 2 days before he was gonna go, like, oh fuck, this isn't working, he decided to write a last-ditch letter to Close, begging him to come forward and, be like, yo, you cannot send him. He has never fired a rifle before. Close received the letter and then did nothing.
Close is a fucking dick.
I wonder if Close looked at him and went like, huh.
I guarantee you that shit went to the trash can.
Bad friend.
Didn't get the letter.
Yeah. he just doomed his friend to like a year plus in Vietnam and possibly dying.
Most likely dying without any fucking training.
Yeah. I mean, it turns out Mahar was apparently a natural-born soldier, but we'll get to that point.
Well, he wrote a book, so.
Now you're probably wondering, like, yeah, and only the best soldiers write books.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you that. You're probably wondering, like, what the fuck did Close do? Like, his whole family knew he had been drafted and he was going to Vietnam. He couldn't fucking stop talking about it.
And now he's on his honeymoon.
And there's no way that he could be like, oh, yeah, guess the army isn't sending me to Vietnam. That doesn't fucking happen. So he just kind of, like, and then you have to have an excuse. Like, oh, yeah, you remember Paul from down the street when we were kids? Got him to go to my place. Like, that's not going to fucking work. And now he's going to have to go look for a job because he doesn't have the fucking army to pay him anymore. He packed his bags, told his family he was going to Vietnam, and then moved down the street to Asbury Park, New Jersey. It's like 2 hours away.
That's awesome.
And then he worked the night shift at a donut shop using Mahar's
Yes.
social security number.
Did his wife go with him?
Yeah, his wife was in on the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
His wife actually sent Mahar care packages the whole time.
Well, that's nice.
Under his own name. Because remember, Close is in Vietnam.
Yeah.
You're like, Close, why are you sending yourself a care package? He was assigned, so Mahar, who is now Close legally, but also illegally, his whole thing is gray, was assigned to the 25th Infantry Division and put on a 5-day orientation course, which is like something I'll consider like the left seat, right seat that we do now. Like, this is how you'll patrol without getting killed immediately. And also, a lot of these guys, they had trained with the M14 rifle. They get sent to Vietnam, they get given an M16 because it's a Vietnam-only weapon. Like, if you were stationed in Germany at the time, you'd get an M14. So they had to go through training how to use that, too. Now, this would be the only training he ever got before he saw combat for the first time. 5 days. Still never having fired his rifle. He didn't know how to take it apart. He didn't know how...
You don't need to.
Yeah. Never need to clean it, remember?
Yeah.
He didn't know even the most basic soldier skills, which is like, everybody's like, oh, that's weird. But thankfully, instead of like casting him out like an outcast, they people took pity on him and trained him. It's probably because like this fucking idiot's gonna get me killed.
Yeah.
Now it should come as no surprise to anybody that the NCO put in charge of them were very fucking unimpressed with him as a soldier, and there's probably a good reason for that because he wasn't one. And to his credit, like a professional fucking wrestler in the 1990s, he never broke his cover. He never fucking told it. He never ran to the first sergeant like, I don't need to be here. He just like, well, I guess I need to learn this shit. Because like he hit the ground. He's pretty practical about the whole thing. He's like, well, that didn't work. Now I need to learn as much as I can or I'm going to fucking die. And
The name part for me would be the hardest. I'm close. Close.
Yeah.
Close.
Now this is important for him because even though soldiers were helping each other, it through what was probably the hardest point of any of their lives, he had to look really fucking dumb asking them how to do the most basic shit on earth, and them actually teaching them is pretty impressive. Like, imagine you had a private go up to you at like a range, like, so this gun, how do I make it gun? And you're like, what? I've never done this before. Like, he's never fired a gun before in his entire life. He didn't even understand the basic concepts of marksmanship. Nothing. He didn't know how to use a hand grenade. He didn't know how to like use half the gear he'd been issued.
This is awesome.
Yeah. Though his skills may have been non-existent, that did not mean Mahar was not equipped with a massive set of balls. Only 2 weeks after arriving in Vietnam, his platoon was traveling by boat, like really shitty ramshackle boat. I think it was like one of the little sampans that the Vietnamese used. Not used to having fully loaded soldiers in it. It overturned and dumped them all into the river. They were all carrying 40 to 70 pounds of gear. They sank like rocks. Mahar jumped right in and rescued several people and even saved a man's life with CPR.
Nice.
But because he was a private, they gave him an ARCOM, an Army Combination Medal. Which
I wonder if he knew CPR or he was just guessing.
I'm assuming
I'm pretty sure he didn't
had
get training on it.
Yeah, I was just trying to make out with him.
Yeah. He's alive. He's good. He's awake.
I'm really into breaking people's ribs. It should be pointed out that an ARCOM is the same medal that I was awarded for helping set up an Orange County chopper show. So, yep. Mahar became fast friends with his new platoon mates. He found something that he had been lacking for most of his life.
But he's a great kisser.
He had structure. He had something to do every day. He also probably helped that he couldn't just get shit-faced all the time and skip out of class. Also, hilariously, Mahar said he was able to get along with all these soldiers from various different walks of life, despite not being one, because of his time as an alcoholic in a flop house in Pittsburgh. Yeah, like
That tracks.
because like most of the time, soldiers are really only one shade removed from being drunk and homeless people. It's like that show 60 Days In, where like a bunch of people get thrown into jail.
Oh yeah.
And they're like from the street. They're not criminals. They just get thrown into like the worst fucking jails in America. And the only person that ever just like doesn't find a problem with any of it's like a veteran. Because I'm not trying to say like veterans are just better at things than some people. Maybe they're better at being incarcerated. Because like even in the best of times, your platoon's probably full of a drug addict, people with unmedicated mental illness, and gangbangers. So it's like, I'm home.
Yeah. And you are used to being incarcerated pretty much.
Yeah, nobody can lay around on their bed and do nothing for hours like a soldier. Now, unfortunately for Mahar, the combat skills he had been taught secondhand by his platoon mates were going to become incredibly important. He was about to see some of the heaviest fighting of the entire war up to that point. He's going to be going to what is known as the Iron Triangle, the 120 square mile area that had never once been able to be controlled by any of Vietnam's invaders over the years. And there has been plenty. It's jungle Afghanistan, effectively. God. It was a place of so many tunnels, fortifications, and booby traps, it would have been impossible to count. Mahar was thrown into this death trap as a part of Operation Attleboro, a massive operation that planned to swarm the area and force the VC to fight. You know that thing that always worked so well? They were literally just like, let's just keep throwing soldiers at them until they have to fight us. That seems like
solid.
Real World War I energy there. Mahar fought without any fucking training against thousands of North Vietnamese regulars who had significantly more training than him. Over 100 Americans were killed in the operation. Over 400 were wounded. He was not one of them. Mahar, to his credit, not only did not get hurt, he did pretty goddamn well. He became known around his unit for being the best tunnel rat around.
That sucks.
Mostly, it had a lot to do with his short stature. He's like 5'4" and 140 pounds.
When you're the best at it, obviously, yeah, you're alive, but they keep going to you for it.
Yeah, well, he kept volunteering.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. Mahar having access.
It's his time.
It's
It's
to be
quiet.
good at something?
I mean, yeah, he's like, well, I'm not so good at being a soldier, but crawling through these tunnels. Now, he had accidentally volunteered for an entire war, so I guess he found no problem volunteering to crawl through miles of VC tunnels, armed with only a flashlight and a pistol. He does admit, though, he literally shit himself in fear the first time he actually ran into something in the tunnel. Something was not a person, though.
Is it a shadow?
It was a rooster. The Vietnamese actually, like the VCs actually hid them in parts of the tunnel, like strapping razors to their legs, like they're actually cockfighting. And so it would make loud noises to alert that somebody was coming and then attack them.
That'd be fucking terrifying. Oh, did they put little uniforms on the rooster?
Yeah, they actually had to go to a Ho Chi Minh political school first, too. Now, Mahar leaves out if he shot the rooster or not, so I'm assuming they actually became friends, because not a single part of this makes any fucking sense anyway. Like,
That was their
rooster, we're cool, I'm not actually a soldier. Like, word? And they just...
Me neither.
Yeah. I got drafted. I was supposed to fuck chickens at a farm. Now, after this, Mahar was promoted to sergeant. And he then extended his time in Vietnam. Now, the reason for this was because Mahar obviously accepted that the army was not going to let him go, so he might as well just get the discharge as fast as possible. The army had a deal that if you were a draftee and you extended a couple months and stayed in Vietnam, you could get a discharge as soon as you went home.
Nice.
So that's what Mahar did. He did 406 days in Vietnam.
Jesus.
Yeah. Without a single day of training, and got promoted above his peers who were actually soldiers. Once Mahar got home, he and Close hung out and got drunk. Not because they wanted to catch up. I mean, they kind of thought they were still friends, but because Klaus needed his help again. Now, remember all the shit that Mahar had collected, his awards, his rank, his stories, were all Close. Like, he was supposed to be Frank Close.
Right.
And Close needed to learn all these things so he could go home and tell his family I'm back from Vietnam. So he did. He told Close all of his stories, gave him all of his awards.
This is a friendship?
What a piece of shit.
It gets better. Close, while telling the story of how Mahar's close friend died in Vietnam, cried.
Gross.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah.
I don't like him.
Yikes. Now, Mahar stayed with Close and his wife for a week, though it was pretty clear that their friendship was over. Now, Close's wife actually seems to be the most reasonable person here, like effectively trying to nudge her husband into apologizing for all of this. Close
I
never
thought
did,
she
though.
got confused on who was close.
She just decided to have a three-way. Yeah. She was like, no, you almost got him killed.
Legally, he was her husband.
Right. It's like, I get one. I'm still Frank. Now, his wife's like, you could have saved him at literally any point and did nothing.
It's true.
Furthermore, Close actually began to dislike Mahar. Now, we're not entirely sure of the truth of this. Close has never told his side of the story, but Mahar said, quote, I had taken his rite of passage and his manhood, and he resented me for it. You didn't take it. It was given to you.
Oh, yeah. He was like, here, have it.
After that week, they parted ways and they would never see each other again. I think Mahar was rightfully pissed. Close had been at home living the kind of normal life that anybody would have wanted
Yeah, I'd love to work at a donut shop.
and enjoying his family while Mahar had been nearly getting killed for a year without any training. There was another problem. Mahar was not Close, but had served under his name. And as far as the government was concerned, nobody named Paul Mahar had ever joined the military. And he was certainly not a combat veteran. Not only did Mahar want to use the benefits he had rightly earned, and Close was fucking using, he wanted recognition for his service. You know, he wanted to be recognized as a Vietnam veteran. He wanted his college money. He wanted VA care, which Close was using, by the way, the whole time.
Holy fuck.
Yeah. Whoops. And he really regretted getting a discharge when he did. Like a lot of people after serving overseas or being in the military, when they get out, they don't really know what to do with themselves. He was bored and listless. And Mahar missed the army. Once back in the U.S., he attempted to re-enlist under his real name and was rejected for the pin in his arm.
Holy
Wow.
shit. This
Yep.
this is fucking nuts.
So after that, he just kind of drifted across the country, picking up odd jobs, getting drunk, and being depressed. Because while Mahar may have not gotten any veteran benefits, he was going for the whole veteran experience. He also got married twice with as many divorces and had a child. He was one racist coffee company away from being a vet bro. Like, to prove his status as a veteran, all he had to do was like, just look at my life.
I feel like he deserves to be a vet bro. Like, if anybody should be a fucking vet bro, it should be him.
Yeah, he's earned it.
Yeah.
So in 1981, finally, he decided to attempt to contact the media to tell his story. So maybe the army would listen to him. And as so far, they had ignored him completely. Like, he had sent letters like, hey, I mean, to be fair, the DOD is probably going to get a ton of crazy letters. And they all went unanswered. So he decided to get some media attention to the story. He also sent countless letters to Close begging for him to go public with his side of the story. Each one went unanswered. And as far as I could find, Close never said a fucking word to help his friend out or to tell his side of the story at all. When Mahar told Close in 1988 that he was finally going public with their story, Close cut off all remaining contact with them and they hadn't spoken since. And I'm not sure if Close is still alive. I couldn't find any record of him dying at any point. He very well could still be alive. But he's not talking. After being interviewed by anybody who would listen and countless media appearances, the Army promised they would look into it at exactly the speed that you would expect them to. 10 years later in 1991.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
wow.
Yep. While all this is going on, Mahar made his rounds to hang out with his old buddies, who, after finally hearing his story, he finally broke his cover. In 1991, they're like, holy shit, that's making a whole lot more sense now. But also, it probably made a whole lot of them feel like shit, because, like, he got promoted to sergeant. Which, like, hope you feel real good about that one, NCOs in the room. Guy got promoted just by not dying.
Solid.
Finally, in 1993, the military recognized Paul Mahar as a veteran of the Vietnam War. and awarded him the best prize in the world, his discharge papers.
Nice.
The Army
14, yo.
Now, the Army actually had to base their investigation on dental records and handwriting, also noting the fact that several of Mahar's Army buddies, who knew him as Frank Close, definitely had pictures of them in Vietnam together. That probably helped.
They didn't have Photoshop.
Yeah, in true Army fashion, however, they couldn't just let this shit slide, saying that they were going to investigate to see if either one of them had broken the law, which Close certainly had and never been prosecuted for. Nothing ever happened, though. The Army just couldn't be like, well, you got us. Like, we're going to fuck these old people over.
This is embarrassing to me.
Yeah.
I must fuck you now.
Now, as I said before, the two men grew to dislike one another and stopped speaking. Close refuses to talk to anybody about the time any of this happened. He could have just run to Canada like anybody else, but hey, whatever. He's also never once answered a journalist's request for comment. And even the Army said he was completely unhelpful in their investigation, which literally the entire investigation could have been wrapped up in 5 seconds if he's like, yeah, I'm Frank Close. I did not go to Vietnam. It should be pointed out that Mahar never wanted to be seen as a victim, and he didn't want Close to get in any trouble. He just wanted what was rightfully his at the end of the day. Like, he never ended up using his education benefits, but to be fair, he wouldn't have gotten them until 1990.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just wanted like recognition. It's
right.
like, I almost fucking died. I earned it. And he lived out the rest of his life in Idaho. He died in September 21st, 2004 in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. He was buried with full military honors. Close did not attend the funeral.
I kind of saw that coming.
Yeah. It would actually be kind of shittier if he did. Like,
yeah, with the uniform on.
Yeah. I earned this by fucking him over.
Yeah.
And we don't normally have all three of us in the room for various reasons, but I thought it'd be interesting because one of us in the room does have a story about one of our family members lying to go to Vietnam, and that's Rich.
Why are you looking at me like that?
I'm just fucking interested.
No, yeah. So my granddad, he's kind of a mystery to our family and has passed away, so we can't really ask him about a lot of it. And I don't think that he would tell us if we did, because I think that people used to ask him about his time in the military and things like that, but he never would talk about it.
It's pretty common.
Yeah. But apparently he ran away from home. He was adopted. We do know that. My grandmother, who was married to him for over 50 years, never, I think, met one of his sisters one time, but never met any of his family. But he apparently ran away from home when he was 15 and joined the Army. And the only reason we know that he joined the Army at 15 is because when he was of the age that he was supposed to have filed for Social Security,
He didn't qualify.
he was not old enough to file for Social Security. So my grandma never even knew until...
That's a real hard one to explain.
Yeah.
Also, like, props to keeping the story straight for fucking 80 years or however long it was.
He was a very, very smart man, but he was quiet and only talked when he wanted to talk and about what he wanted to talk about. So
I feel like I would have liked him.
Solid.
I mean, he was like special forces and shit, so he did some shit.
Yeah.
But he never talked about it.
Yeah. I never had anybody in my family dodge the draft I'm aware of. I don't think my dad was old enough. But my grandpa, I have no idea who he was in reality, because he joined the French Foreign Legion and picked a name. And I've had it explained to me that you could possibly keep your last name, change your first name, or change both of them. His first name definitely is not Jacques. I have no idea why anybody picked the last name Kasabian if it wasn't theirs, unless it's like a differentiation in the spelling. But he's not from France, because when I was stationed in Germany and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go visit some of our family that you say is in France, he's like, no, don't go there. Oh. So like there's definitely no Kasabians there. Also, he definitely had some prison tattoos. No, that could have been like really shitty French Foreign Legionnaire work, or like he ran away from Armenia for a very good reason because it was the Soviet Union at the time. He didn't want to die. And my grandma Sarah, in her later life when she was starting to lose her faculties, didn't keep up the lie. she was a Serbian immigrant to France, and that's where they met. And said, like, I don't know why you picked Jacques. I hate that fucking name. And he's like, shut up, Sarah. I was like, huh.
Keep talking.
Go on. But yeah. So, like, I don't know where he's from. Like, fuck, I could. Maybe I'm not even Armenian. I certainly look it. But maybe
you have
it's
that
from,
Armenian glow.
I mean,
None
maybe
at
he's
all.
from somewhere else in the Soviet Union. I don't know. That's our episode. So if Frank Close is still alive, fuck you.
You're kind of a douche.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
like,
fuck you. You're worst fucking friend ever if that's an
Dude.
award.
It's like, I don't know if we've ever given out the, like, dude, award. I don't know if it's an award we have.
we can make it one.
We give it to him.
Yeah.
It's like a picture of a guy squinting and looking sideways at you, like, dude. That's it. That's our new award. Attention orders. Frank Close. Dude.
That's it.
That's all we get. And like a slight head shake. But thank you for joining me. The whole crew in the house today. Thank you for supporting the show. You make everything we do possible. You help us buy books. You help us pay for our recording equipment that we now actually have to pay for.
Watch movies.
You help us pay for really, really bad movies that we then inflict upon you in the form of bonus episodes. There has been some interest in doing like a Mystery Science Theater type shit, like you have been talking about for a long time, Nick, where we just watch it and record it in real time. And we have to try to figure out the legalities behind that, because I'm pretty sure having a movie in the background of something that we're not paying them for
Right.
is some form of piracy.
Right.
It's not the first time. I pirate literally every intro to every episode, and SoundCloud hasn't caught on. So I think we might be good. We're going to try it. But
Way to announce it.
Yeah, way to tell him.
yeah, I've done it before. I've stolen so many
But
Sabaton
it's
songs
also
now.
like, it's the intro.
I'm only stealing like 5 seconds of
Yeah.
it. And I'm not stealing. I'm redistributing it to the masses, you motherfuckers. But if you don't want to give money to us, that's fine. Our show will always be free and ad-free.
We're free.
So, y'all, we do something on the show called Question from the Legion. And we got some questions today. Now, if you want to ask us a question from the Legion, you can donate $1 to us on Patreon, and you can send it to us via Patreon message or through the Discord, which we actually normally use the Discord because it's way faster. And who communicates through Patreon? That shit sucks. Now, what was the dumbest thing that you've ever been ordered to do in the military? God damn, that one has layers.
Onions.
I think, so I speak Nick. He means because onions have layers.
Yes, I got that. Like Shrek.
Yeah.
Shrek
does
has layers.
Why are you skinning Shrek? Now,
He literally says it in the movie.
He has layers, Joe.
We should watch the movie now.
I think the dumbest thing I was probably ordered to do off the top of my head, and I'll probably think of something dumber as soon as we stop recording, was when we were in Afghanistan. And Rich is familiar with this story. When we were in Afghanistan, people kept shit talking a TOC officer or a TOC NCO in the porta potties, like writing, like, you know, saying the normal horrible things. I won't even repeat on air because they're told I'll get canceled for it. Saying terrible things about this one particular asshole who works in the TOC. And he was a staff sergeant, so he had some pull, and it was a very low ranking outpost for the most part. I think like the highest ranking person there was like an E7, and I think some shit was said about him as well. So he posted an armed guard outside of the porta potties. Now, this is the same time that we're running night missions. We're manning the towers. We're training Afghan police officers. We hardly have time to sleep. So now we have to guard these porta potties, and we have to search people before they go in and take their pens away. And then when they leave the porta potties, you have to inspect them to make sure there's no new dicks or whatever drawn up there.
I want to just add to this story and say that at this point, we had been in Afghanistan for probably about 3 months. And during those 3 months, there were plenty of drawings of all of the females just getting railed. So many comments about the females doing this and doing that and sucking this dick and sucking that and all of that shit. It wasn't until this particular staff sergeant got featured in the porta potty that we had to post armed guards.
There was even like stuff about the CO and the first sergeant. They're like, yeah, whatever, soldiers are going to do that.
They're like, that's funny. Hey.
I don't look like that. It made me really happy that I kidnapped and murdered that guy's goats, and then I ate them. Same guy.
Oh,
Nick,
man.
you've got some doozies.
One of them was in basically the same unit. Was one of the first sergeants found a can in the trash can and on the recycled trash can, so he had armed guard as well, full battle rattle outside of the CQ desk.
This is like the Dwight Schrute Earth Day. What was his name?
Recyclops.
Recyclops.
Yeah, pretty much. But it was a fat first sergeant, fucking asshole.
You need to guard a recycling.
Yeah, it was basically your sister company.
Do you like it like present arms? Yep, that's recyclable. Go ahead.
Hold up. Yep, you're good.
This doesn't have a return on it. That's trash. I think honestly, I don't know how many of our listeners are civilians. I don't know where our civil military divide split is in our audience numbers. But the people who are not familiar with the military would be shocked about just how much time soldiers waste doing things like that. That's not the first bathroom I've had to guard.
Oh,
I had to go through a trash can in the motor pool in that same unit. No, so I say trash can. I mean dumpster.
Mm-hmm.
Because someone threw away a non-recyclable thing in there. Or either or, I forget which. And we had to climb through it and find things. Yeah.
We were
It
ordered.
was awful.
Yeah, we were ordered to get into the dumpster at the DFAC in cook whites.
They probably weren't so white anymore.
The dumpster was full of food and liquids.
Ugh, trash water.
Yeah.
It's the worst possible.
Yeah, I refused that order.
How much money would it take for you to take a saltine cracker and dip it in there? 500?
I'm gonna need at least 1,000.
I'll double dip for 1,000.
I don't even know.
I would double dip for 1,000.
I don't think I would.
Nick, your price just keeps getting lower.
I'm not good at negotiating.
Self-respect, man.
Fish tank rocks, I'll do it for.
We use this as currency at JRTC. So, thank you, person. I'll never ask. I'll never say their name on air. I don't want to shame them like that for asking this question. If you want to ask us, donate $1, and then immediately cancel it so you can ask your question for $1.
Nice.
I'm just helping out. Like I said, our show will always be free. But if you think what we do is worth $1, you can throw it to us on Patreon. Thank you, everybody, for listening to poor Paul Mahar's story. Thank you too for joining me. It's not often we get the whole gang together in the recording studio anymore. And until next time, dude.